My ex-wife fired me from our marketing agency right after our divorce. "You built nothing here," she said coldly. "This was all my vision." I just smiled, packed my things quietly, and walked out without saying a word. What she discovered next made her realize I'd been planning this moment for months. My name is Troy Thornbridge. I'm 41 years old, and until last Friday, I was co-founder and creative director of Thornbridge and Associates Marketing in Chicago. For 12 years, Vanessa and I had built what everyone considered a power couple success story. A thriving agency, a beautiful daughter, the perfect life. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday in March. No warning, no discussion, just a process server at my office door with a manila envelope that changed everything. Irreconcilable differences, the document stated. What they didn't mention was Derek Blackstone, Vanessa's personal trainer, who'd been helping her with more than just fitness for the past 8 months. I discovered their affair accidentally. Vanessa had left her laptop open to an email thread that made everything crystal clear. Late-night gym sessions, weekend retreats, text messages about meeting at his place. When I confronted her about the affair, Vanessa didn't deny it. Instead, she attacked, claiming I'd been emotionally absent for years and that Derek understood what she needed. When I asked about Madison and our business, her response was cold and calculating. She said Madison would adjust and we'd figure out the business in court. That conversation happened 6 months ago. The divorce was finalized last week, and Friday was supposed to be our transition meeting to discuss the future of Thornbridge and Associates. Instead, Vanessa had called an emergency staff meeting and announced my immediate termination. I walked into our conference room to find our entire team assembled. Lydia Thornton, our account director, Bennett Shaw, senior designer, Evelyn Cross, our finance manager. Everyone looked uncomfortable. Vanessa stood at the head of the table in her power suit, radiating confidence. "As you all know, Troy and I have finalized our divorce," she began. "What you don't know is that effective immediately, Troy is no longer affiliated with this agency." The room went silent. Lydia shifted in her chair. Bennett stared at his coffee cup. "Troy has been a distraction and a liability," Vanessa continued. "His personal problems have affected his work quality, and frankly, this company deserves better leadership." I felt every eye in the room turn toward me. These people had been my colleagues, my friends for years. Some of them I'd hired personally. "Troy, do you have anything to say?" Vanessa asked, her tone suggesting she hoped I'd make a scene. I stood up slowly, looking around the table at faces I'd worked alongside for nearly a decade. "Just one thing," I said quietly. "Good luck." The confusion in Vanessa's expression was almost worth the humiliation. She'd expected anger, threats, maybe even begging. My calm acceptance clearly wasn't part of her script. I walked to my office, packed my personal items into a single box, and left the building I'd helped purchase 8 years earlier. What Vanessa didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment since the day I found those emails. If you've ever wondered how to protect yourself when someone you trust is planning to destroy you, hit subscribe for more stories of calculated comebacks. 6 months earlier, when I first discovered Vanessa's affair, I'd made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting her immediately, I'd started documenting everything and building relationships outside of Thornbridge and Associates. Dorian Mills had been my college roommate and best man at my wedding. After graduation, he'd moved to Phoenix and built a successful digital marketing consultancy. When he heard about my divorce proceedings, he'd made an interesting proposition. "Start fresh," he'd said during a weekend visit in February. "I'll provide the initial funding, you provide the expertise, we split ownership 50-50. At the time, I'd turned him down. I still believed Vanessa and I could work out some arrangement to continue running the agency together. But after Friday's ambush, Dorian's offer looked like salvation. I called him from my car in the parking lot and asked if he was still interested in that partnership. When he confirmed, I outlined my conditions: Launch immediately, full client roster within 30 days, and Vanessa doesn't find out until we're ready. Dorian laughed, asking if I'd been planning this. I admitted I'd learned not to trust anyone completely. Sunday night, I drove to a co-working space in downtown Chicago and set up temporary headquarters for Zenith Marketing Group. The name had been Dorian's suggestion, something that sounded established, professional, completely separate from anything associated with Thornbridge. Monday morning brought the first test. At exactly 9 a.m., I called Brightstone Industries, our largest client. Robert Sterling, their marketing director, answered on the second ring and asked how I was handling the divorce, mentioning that Vanessa had told him things were getting finalized. I explained there had been changes at Thornbridge and I was launching a new agency. When Robert asked what kind of changes, I told him I was no longer with Thornbridge and Associates, that Vanessa wanted to take the company in a different direction, and I wanted to ensure his campaigns didn't suffer during any transition. Robert's response was immediate and decisive. He pointed out that I'd managed their account personally for 4 years, and their campaigns had been consistently successful because of my direct involvement. He didn't hesitate when I offered the same level of service under a different company name. The Brightstone conversation lasted 20 minutes. By the end, I had their verbal commitment to transfer their $200,000 annual contract to Zenith Marketing Group. I spent the rest of Monday making similar calls. Silver Point Corporation followed Brightstone immediately. Obsidian Tech Group required more convincing, but by Tuesday afternoon, they'd agreed to meet with me to discuss transitioning their account. By Wednesday, I had secured verbal commitments representing 70% of Thornbridge's total revenue. Thursday morning, I received an unexpected call from Bennett Shaw requesting a private meeting. We met at a coffee shop 6 blocks from the Thornbridge office. Bennett looked nervous, constantly checking over his shoulder. He explained that Vanessa had been asking questions about client relationships, specifically who managed which accounts and whether clients worked with the agency or with specific team members. When I asked what he'd told her, Bennett said he'd been honest, that most major clients specifically requested to work with me and probably didn't even know who else worked there. Bennett described Vanessa's poor reaction, explaining she'd been making calls to clients since Tuesday, trying to schedule meetings about their satisfaction with services. When I asked if he was happy working for Vanessa, his bitter laugh told me everything. He described how she'd changed since the divorce proceedings started, making everything about control and questioning every creative decision while micromanaging every project. I offered him a position at my new agency, same work, better environment, competitive salary increase. His response was immediate. When do I start? By Thursday evening, Bennett had given his notice at Thornbridge. So had Lydia Thornton, who'd been increasingly frustrated with Vanessa's management style. Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after my termination, I sat in Zenith's temporary headquarters reviewing our client roster. 3 major accounts confirmed, 2 more in negotiation, and half of Thornbridge's creative team now working for me. My phone rang. Vanessa's name on the caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. The message was 3 minutes of barely controlled fury. Accusations of corporate sabotage, threats of legal action, demands that I return company property I'd never taken. Saturday morning brought another call. This time I answered. Vanessa's opening was explosive, calling me a bastard and accusing me of stealing her clients. I calmly explained that I hadn't stolen anything. They had chosen to follow me. When she insisted those were company accounts, I pointed out they were relationships I'd built personally over 4 years, based on trust and results. Her threat of legal action was met with my suggestion that she have her lawyer explain tortious interference and non-compete clauses, noting that firing someone voids most contractual obligations. After a moment of silence, she declared this wasn't over. I simply said yes. It was, and hung up. Sunday, I spent the day with Madison at Lincoln Park Zoo. At 12 years old, she was old enough to understand that her parents were no longer married. "Dad, why is Mom so angry all the time now?" she asked as we watched the penguins. "Divorce is hard on everyone, sweetheart. Your mom and I are figuring out how to be separate people. But you're still my dad. Always, that never changes." Monday morning brought clarity and vindication. I arrived at Zenith's new permanent office space, a sleek suite in River North that Dorian had secured over the weekend. Professional, modern, everything Thornbridge had been, but without the toxic atmosphere. At 10 a.m., my phone rang. An unknown number. "Mr. Thornbridge, this is Jasper Reed from Blackstone Legal Partners. I represent Vanessa Thornbridge regarding your recent business activities." "How can I help you, Mr. Reed?" "My client believes you may have violated several contractual obligations regarding client relationships and proprietary information." "Really? Which contracts specifically?" I heard papers shuffling. "Well, there appears to be some question about the enforceability of certain non-compete clauses given the circumstances of your departure." "Let me save you some time, Mr. Reed. I was terminated without cause. I took no company property. I solicited no clients using company resources. I simply informed existing professional contacts about my new business arrangement." More paper shuffling. "My client is prepared to discuss a settlement arrangement." "What kind of settlement?" "Return of the disputed accounts in exchange for a structured severance package." I laughed. "Mr. Reed, your client fired me to eliminate my involvement in those relationships. She can't terminate me and then demand I continue working for her benefit." "Mr. Thornbridge, my client is prepared to pursue all legal remedies." "Your client should focus on serving the accounts she retained instead of trying to control the ones she lost." I hung up and immediately called my own attorney to document the conversation. Tuesday brought news that crystallized everything. Lydia called during her lunch break with information that changed the entire dynamic. "Troy, you need to know something about why Vanessa really wanted you out." "I'm listening." "She's been planning to sell the agency. There's a buyer interested, but they want to purchase client relationships, not just office space and equipment." The pieces clicked into place. Vanessa hadn't fired me out of spite or control. She'd fired me to eliminate my claim to the client relationships that represented the agency's primary value. "Who's the buyer?" "Blackstone and Associates." Derek Blackstone. Her personal trainer boyfriend was also a marketing executive with expansion ambitions. The entire divorce, the hostile termination, even the legal threats. Everything had been designed to clear the way for Vanessa to sell our agency to her new boyfriend at maximum value. "Lydia, how much do you know about this sale?" "Enough to know that Derek's been involved in agency operations for months, attending client meetings, reviewing financial records, participating in strategic planning sessions." "Before or after my termination?" "Before, way before." I thanked Lydia and immediately called Dorian. "We need to accelerate everything," I told him. "This isn't just about building a new agency, it's about preventing Vanessa from selling relationships I built to her boyfriend." "What do you need?" "Full legal review of every client contract. I want to know exactly what Thornbridge can and cannot claim regarding those relationships." By Wednesday, our attorney had delivered his analysis. The news was better than I'd hoped. Most of our major client contracts included specific performance clauses tied to key personnel, meaning me. If those clients chose to terminate their agreements due to personnel changes, Thornbridge had no legal recourse. More importantly, several contracts included clauses allowing clients to follow key personnel to new agencies without penalty. I'd insisted on those clauses years earlier, arguing they protected client interests. Now they protected mine. Thursday morning, I made a decision that would end this situation permanently. I called a press conference, not a major media event, just industry trade publications and local business reporters. "I'm pleased to announce the launch of Zenith Marketing Group. I told the assembled journalists. After 12 successful years building Thornbridge and Associates, I'm excited to start fresh with a team dedicated to client service and creative excellence. The questions came immediately about taking clients from my former agency, my departure being related to divorce and potential legal action. I handled each professionally, emphasizing client choice, business decisions, and legal compliance. The article appeared online that afternoon and in print Friday morning. Professional, factual, and devastating to any narrative Vanessa might try to construct. Friday afternoon, exactly 2 weeks after my termination, I received one final call from Jasper Reed. Mr. Thornbridge, my client is withdrawing all legal claims and requests that you refrain from further public statements. Understood. Anything else? My client also wanted me to convey that she respects your business acumen. 3 months later, Zenith Marketing Group had grown to 12 employees and $2.3 million in annual contracts. We'd moved to a larger office space and were considering expansion into Milwaukee. Thornbridge and Associates had indeed been sold to Blackstone and Associates, but for significantly less than Vanessa had projected. Losing 70% of their client base had made the agency much less attractive to buyers. Madison spent alternating weekends with me in my new apartment near the lake. She'd adjusted to the divorce better than expected. During one Saturday puzzle session, she asked if I missed working with her mom. I told her honestly that I missed when we were partners, but sometimes people grow in different directions. When she asked if I was happier now, I considered the question carefully while fitting a puzzle piece into place, finally saying I was proud of what I'd built. That sounds like you're happier. Maybe I was. Building something new with people who chose to work with me felt better than the toxic atmosphere at Thornbridge. When someone shows you they don't value your contributions, believe them. Start building something they can't take away. Vanessa thought firing me would eliminate my influence. Instead, it freed me to build something better.